On the day I became pregnant with my second child, the child in my belly unexpectedly exposed my heart. Fool sister, my mother said that as soon as you graduate, she will sell you for a bride price for me to marry a daughter-in-law in the future. After hearing this, the daughter silently applied to study abroad and has not been heard from since. The old man was going to comfort me, but he also heard the voice of the second child. What about comfort? The stupidest thing in this family is you. After I am born, I won't call you dad. Because my dad is the little brother in the bar, he is handsome. My husband immediately took me to the hospital for a paternity test. But on the paternity test that my girlfriend did for me urgently, it was clearly written that the second child was not related to her husband. My husband directly filed for divorce with me. The second child blurted out anxiously, "Why is this receiver suddenly going to divorce? Did he find out that his mother lied to him? The person who saved him back then was not his mother, but his mother's best friend?" When my husband heard this, he married his best friend instead. But I died in a hospital bed because of the sudden heavy bleeding of the child in my belly. I don't know why I ended up like this until I died. Until I was reborn, I also heard the voice of the second child. "Serena, congratulations. This time I am really pregnant with my second child, and now I have both children. There is no happier mother than you." A familiar voice sounded in my ears, and I suddenly opened my eyes and saw the ultrasound sheet in my girlfriend Vera's hand, and finally confirmed that I was really reborn. When my husband learned that the second child was a son, he immediately happily wrapped a big red envelope for Vera. The daughter who is about to graduate from college and her husband are fighting to name the child. But the next second, the second child in my belly rang out, "Foolish sister, I don't want you to name me. Mom said that as soon as you graduate, she will sell you for a bride price for me to marry a daughter-in-law in the future." When the daughter heard this, her face turned white instantly. It was the same in the previous life, and after the daughter heard the voice of the second child, she lost the smile on her face. With a lively and cheerful personality, she became taciturn and no longer close to us. At first, I thought she was worried about her graduation thesis. Unexpectedly, as soon as she graduated from university, she applied to study abroad. And then there was no news. It wasn't until 2 months later that she received a call from a broken relative. "Mom, this is the last time I call your mother. Because I'll never come back. I will get married and have children abroad, so you should pretend that you have never given birth to a daughter from me." I didn't expect my daughter to say such a thing, and I cried at that time. Now seeing my daughter's disappointed eyes, I immediately took my daughter's hand. "Clara, Mom doesn't plan to have this child anymore. Don't worry, you will always be your mother's favorite daughter." The daughter was stunned, but the girlfriend on the side was anxious. "Serena, are you crazy? You are so good, why do you want to abort the child?" The husband also showed a puzzled expression. "Yes. What's wrong with you, wife? Don't you always want to have both children? It's not that we can't afford it. Why do you have to abort this child?" Looking at my husband's unclear appearance, I was even more sure that he didn't hear the voice of the second child just now. It seems that this child can also selectively choose who can hear his heart. In order to avoid the tragedy of my previous life, I had to get rid of him. "Husband, you must listen to me this time, we must kill this child." As soon as my words fell, the second child in my stomach kicked me anxiously. "Mom. You are so cruel. Just because you are afraid that your husband will find out that I am not his own son, are you going to kill me and cover up the fact that you cheated?" His voice was like a spell, reminding me of a past life. At that time, my daughter had just broken off from me, and I was sad and washed my face with tears every day. When my husband was worried about my body and advised me to take good care of myself for the sake of the child in my belly, it was at this time that he let my husband hear his heart. Obviously, 1 second he was full of tenderness for me, but the next second he dragged me to the hospital. I thought he was worried about what was wrong with the child in his belly. Obediently cooperated with him to do various investigations. But on the day I got the paternity test, I knew that my husband suspected that the child in my belly was not his. But how is it possible? I never did anything sorry for him. But what shocked me even more was that on the paternity test, it was clearly written that the second child and her husband were not related by blood. So my husband completely listened to the voice of the second child. Just like now, my husband is quietly listening to the voice of the second child. I'm really pitiful. I haven't seen my dad yet. He is young and handsome, he is the most handsome little brother in the bar, and he is completely a few streets away from this receiver. Mom. Didn't you say that if you give birth to me, you will divorce the receiver and take me to reunite with my father? To be honest, I have no idea who the bar brother in the second child's mouth is. Because I've never been to any bar. But my husband's face became more and more ugly, and there was a little more suspicion in his eyes when he looked at me. Are you in such a hurry to abort this child because of? I can guarantee that this child is yours. If you don't believe it, we can do a paternity test. Before he finished speaking, I took the lead in proposing to do a paternity test. Seeing my vowed appearance, his brows gradually relaxed. Wife, it's not that I don't believe you, I'm just. Seeing that the atmosphere between our husband and wife was a little awkward, Vera quickly rounded up and said, you husband and wife aren't you just doing a paternity test? I will help you do it well, and I guarantee that the results will be produced in 4 hours. I sneered and looked at her and said. Vera, thank you for your kindness, but I want to change hospitals. No. A hint of panic flashed on Vera's face. I mean, your best friend, I'm a doctor, why do you have to go to another hospital so troublesome? Don't you believe me? I really can't believe her. After all, in my previous life, it was the paternity test she helped me do, which completely nailed me to the shame of cheating in marriage. In the end, I was forced to leave the house, and it was she who successfully replaced me and married my husband with the voice of her second child. As the ultimate beneficiary of the whole incident, let me believe that she has nothing to do with this second child. I definitely don't believe it. So I pretended to be righteous and awe-inspiring, and said to my husband, doing a paternity test is a big deal, Vera is my best girlfriend, in order to ensure the accuracy of the paternity test, husband, can you really rest assured to let Vera help us do it? Just when my husband was about to agree to my proposal, the second child praised. Mom, this trick is really clever. The father of the receiver must not have imagined that my mother had already bought a doctor. No matter which hospital I went to, the paternity test would say that I was the father of the receiver. Does this kid want to kill me again? I tried to suppress the anger in my heart, and finally simply threw the problem of the century to my husband. How to do a paternity test, you decide. There are thousands of hospitals across the country, you can choose any place. My husband also seemed to be a little tired, he pinched his eyebrows and said, forget it, let Vera do it. We watched her do it, and there should be no problem. I thought about it and felt that if 4 pairs of eyes were staring at her at the same time, there should be no problem. Vera's face showed a hint of embarrassment, but she still cooperated with us and drew our blood. 4 hours later, the hot paternity test was finally released. After seeing the above results, I breathed a sigh of relief. Although I don't know why the child harmed me, from a biological point of view, he is indeed my own son and my husband. This is not wrong after all. Vera pretended to be kind and said, look, you are just worrying about it, and the result is that you look at it, how can the paternity test go wrong? But as soon as her words fell, the second child's voice jumped out impartially. Mom's charm is great, and Aunt Vera would rather give up her professional ethics and help her do a fake paternity test. The husband immediately became angry and pinched Vera's arm. Vera. Do you dare to swear with your career? Is this paternity test real? Vera's face was full of grievances, but she didn't say a word. It looked like I really asked her to make a false report for me. I was about to explain, but the second child was more anxious than me. Mom, let the receiver father let go of Aunt Vera's hand. In case he sees the burns on Aunt Vera's arm and knows that the person who saved his life was Aunt Vera, then my mother can't hide the fact that she pretended to be a savior in order to marry her father. I didn't pretend at all. When my husband was in a car accident and was sent to the hospital, he went into shock because of excessive blood loss. But the bad thing is that the hospital just doesn't have the blood type my husband needs. It was I who violated the hospital's regulations and gave my husband 800 cubic centimeters of blood. After the blood transfusion, I knocked over the kettle on the table due to my weakness, leaving a scar on my arm that I could never get rid of. At that time, a colleague laughed and said, "What should I do if I can't get married in the future with such a big scar?" He had not yet fully regained consciousness, but he said in a daze, "I will marry you." I just took it as a joke and didn't take it to heart. But later my husband still recognized me as the little nurse who saved his life with this scar. Because of this fate, we naturally walked together, got married and had children, until now. We have been married for 16 years. I thought he wouldn't doubt me because of the second child's heart, but he couldn't wait to lift Vera's sleeves. When he saw that Vera's arm did have a scar on her arm that was exactly the same as mine, he grabbed Vera's hand even harder. "Where did your scar come from?" Vera nervously withdrew her hand, looked at me mournfully, and said, "It was all more than 10 years ago. What's the use of saying this now?" "I want to know the answer." Looking at her husband's stubborn eyes, Vera pretended to squeeze out 2 tears. "When I saved a car accident patient and gave him 800 cubic centimeters of blood, I accidentally touched a hot water bottle and was burned by boiling water. He also said he wanted to marry me. But I waited for so many years, and I didn't wait for him." "Husband, don't listen to her. She lied to you." I grabbed my husband's hand and tried to make him believe me. But he pushed me away impatiently. "Serena, I really didn't expect you to do something like pretending to be a good sister." I was pushed to the ground by him, and a lot of blood flowed out from under me. My daughter helped me up worriedly. But there was a sharp pain in my stomach. "Ah. It hurts." Hearing my exclamation, my husband and Vera also cast their eyes. The two hurriedly helped me up and sent me into the operating room. I looked at Vera, my eyes full of hatred. "If I die, you will be a murderer. I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost." Her husband said unfairly, "Obviously you took everything from Vera, you still don't repent, and I don't want to care who this child belongs to. When you come out of the operating room, let's get a divorce." Listening to his words, I closed my eyes as if I was dead. The operation lasted for an hour, and the child's heart rang for an hour. But this time, he said to me, "He, your husband's love for you is nothing more than that. Bad woman, you still want to beat me off. Let me tell you, you never want to get rid of me. When you are discharged from the hospital, I will let your parents leave you too. Make you a woman that no one wants." What a vicious second child. He is obviously my son, but he is deliberately harming me. It was as if I had done something evil that people and gods were angry about. Before I fell into a coma, I couldn't help but ask him why he did this to me. But he didn't speak until the effect of the anesthetic dissipated, and the doctor handed him a glass of water. Fortunately, the child is very tenacious and out of danger, but he still needs to be hospitalized for observation for a while. Looking at the glass of transparent plain water, my whole body suddenly became enlightened. I finally understood what the voice of this second child was all about. In the days that followed, I lived a very comfortable life. During this period, the second child would provoke me with a few words from time to time, and he seemed to want me to shed him in a fit of anger. But I didn't like him, so I let him grow healthy in my belly. Even when I received my husband's divorce agreement, I didn't recover it painfully, but signed my name directly with a wave of my hand. A few days after the divorce, her husband proposed to Vera. On the day we set the wedding date, Vera called me. "Serena, I have already told Victor that the child in your belly is not his. It was I who cared about sisterhood that helped you make a false report. For Victor's reputation, I advise you to get rid of this child as soon as possible, otherwise we will make your marital cheating known to the world and turn you into a street rat." In the face of her threat, I said yes. Behind the scenes, he ate all kinds of supplements and raised the second baby to be fat. Until the due date approached, Vera, who was having a wedding, suddenly received a video call from me. "Hi. Happy newlyweds, 100 years of good combination." She saw my high bulging belly and had a look of horror on her face. In the next second, she decisively threw down Victor holding the wedding ring, rushed into my ward in less than half a quarter of an hour and knelt down for me. Serena. Why haven't you killed this child yet? There is no time. I beg you to kill him quickly, okay? As long as you agree to beat him off, I will return your husband to you immediately. I touched my round belly and said with a smile. Are you kidding? It's about to be born, how can it be beaten? Legally, he already has human rights, and if I kill him now, it is murder and he will go to jail. She bit her lip anxiously, looking for a suitable excuse for me without hesitation. It's okay, I'll personally help you with the operation. I won't tell anyone. As long as no one knows, it's not illegal. Aren't you annoyed that he always says all kinds of strange things? Just knock him out, and I can promise you that you will never hear those words again. I knew that he knew what was going on with the second child's heart throughout the whole process. Looking at her anxious appearance, I felt very happy. It was really annoying before. But I don't have any relatives around me now, and I suddenly feel that it's good that he can chat with me by my side. As soon as my words fell, I remembered a burst of hurried footsteps outside the door. My good ex-husband has arrived. As soon as Victor saw Vera kneeling in front of me, he concluded that I was bullying her. He picked up Vera and cursed at me. Serena. I really didn't expect you to be such a vicious person. Go ahead. What are you threatening Vera with? Let her give up the wedding and come and kneel down for you. We have been married for 16 years. There have been quarrels and conflicts in this marriage, as well as sweetness and happiness. But I have never felt that he is extremely disgusting like this moment. Sure enough, not loving is only a momentary thing. I looked at him and sneered, I didn't threaten her. Hurry up and get out of my ward with your good wife. It's best. He wanted to pull Vera away, but the soles of Vera's feet seemed to have roots, and they just refused to go. Victor, let her take the child away. Now it was Victor's turn, full of question marks. Why? Are you worried that this child will affect our children in the future? Vera shook her head, but she looked unspeakable. Of course she couldn't tell the truth. Finally, after hesitating for a long time, she pretended to say, the existence of this child is a stain on your life path. How can you let him be born safely? I was really a little impatient. If I remember correctly, Victor and I are divorced. The child in my belly has nothing to do with him, it is the product of me alone. You have no right to decide his life or death. Victor thought for a moment and said, Serena is right, we really have no qualifications to intervene. Vera was about to cry. She grabbed Victor's arm and begged bitterly. Victor, I beg you, for the sake of saving your life, can you help me? I can't let her second child be born. But... He looked embarrassed, but Vera still held him tightly. Anyway, I'll tell you the reason later. Serena must still love you now. As long as you go up and say a few kind words, she will definitely agree to kill this child. It's a pity that she ended up overestimating Victor's place in my mind. Until the second time, after he gave up our 16-year relationship because of that so-called heart, he was nothing to me. As I watched Victor's eyes gradually become gentler, a strong sense of nausea welled up in my heart. Bah! The second child is not wrong. You are really stupid. You listened to the so-called second child's heart, wronged me for cheating in marriage, and let me leave the house. Why do you think I still love you? Knowing that I also heard my heart, Victor's pupils widened suddenly. Can you hear it too? I didn't answer his question and continued to sneer. Since you don't recognize the child in my belly, then he has nothing to do with you. I don't want to look at them anymore and let my daughter kick them out. But Vera rushed up directly, and at some point there was an extra dagger in her hand. Since you don't agree, I will kill you and the child. I had long expected her to act extremely, and dodged with a dodge. Victor and his daughter on the side were dumbfounded. I frowned and yelled at Victor. Why are you still standing? Your wife is crazy. Are you crazy too? Hurry up and drag her out. Otherwise, I will let you sit in prison. Victor realized and hugged Vera. When she left the ward, she stared at me with hatred. Let go of me. This woman is going to ruin me. She can't give birth to this child. When the door finally closed, I breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Vera didn't dare to tell the truth, otherwise I was really not sure if Victor would help her harm me. But just as I was about to lie down and have a good rest, I found that the dagger that Vera had dropped on the ground was missing. My heart was held together again. Could it be that Victor picked it up? Before I could find the answer, my daughter took the disappearing dagger and stabbed it straight into my stomach. I exclaimed in pain, but the second child laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, well done. I looked at my daughter in disbelief. Clara, why? Why are you doing this? Blood flowed down the dagger on her hand, and her face turned pale before she realized what she had done. But in the face of my question, she did not answer and asked. Mom, it's you who speaks first. Have you forgotten what you said at the beginning? You said you were going to kill this child and make me your favorite daughter. But what are you doing to give birth to him now? I endured the severe pain and quietly rang the nurse's bell behind me, and then explained to her. Clara, the reason why Mom and Dad divorced is because of this child. Only by giving birth to him can my mother clear her grievances. Do you also believe that your mother is the kind of woman who cheats in marriage? A hint of trance flashed in her eyes. But she still bit the bullet and insisted. Mom, I just graduated from college, and I don't want to take everything I have for this child. I didn't understand what she meant, and looked at her puzzled. What are you talking about? What goes with everything about you? She smiled bitterly. Mom, don't pretend, I clearly heard this second child say, because Dad refuses to pay child support, you plan to let me raise this second child. If you don't raise me to adulthood, I will never let you get married and have my own children. I see. I felt that the blood in my body was frozen at this moment. Since the divorce, it has been my daughter who stays in the hospital day and night to accompany me. Even under my intimidation, the second child did not dare to talk nonsense in front of my daughter, but I ignored one fact. That is, after I fell asleep, she could still provoke the feelings between our mother and daughter through her heart. I was careless. At this point, I can only sneer. Why are you two like this? Your father just heard the voice of this so-called second child and decided that I cheated and betrayed him, and he didn't even believe in the paternity test. And so are you. Just because the second child said 2 words without any basis, you are going to kill your mother? Seeing my desperate eyes, my daughter seemed to realize the problem as well. But he's the child in your belly, he has no reason to slander you. Right. It is because of this that he accurately grasped my husband and daughter. It brought me to where I am now. If I say that this second child's voice is all made by Vera, the purpose is to snatch away my husband and make me betray my relatives, do you believe it? I do not know. He, Serena, you have failed in life. Your daughter will kill her own brother. After hearing the voice of the second child, I angrily reprimanded, shut up for me. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. As soon as my words fell, there was a hurried knock on the door. Serena, please open the door. I quickly said to my daughter, Clara, open the door quickly. Mom is dying. The daughter was still confused. Door. I roared angrily. If I die, you are a murderer. Do you want to spend the rest of your life in prison? It was this sentence that made her finally wake up. She quickly opened the door of the ward. As soon as the nurse saw me, she shouted anxiously, oh no, come on. The woman in Ward 202 was stabbed and bleeding profusely. The moment I was pushed into the operating room, I used my last strength to grab the doctor's sleeve. Doctor, I beg you to save this child. This kid is the last weapon against Vera. I can't let him have an accident. Mom. I'm sorry. My daughter looked at my pale face and cried uncontrollably. But I just took one last look at her before I fell into a coma, my eyes full of disappointment. During the operation, all kinds of strange sounds rang in my ears. There are various curses on me with a second child. There were doctors and nurses cheering me on. I even heard Vera's voice. Like a victor, she sneered at me. Serena. You can't fight me. If it were you, I would have committed suicide long ago. Why would I still live in this world? It was because of her words that aroused my last will to survive. I am not reconciled. I have been a human being for 2 lifetimes. Why should it end up as tragic as in the previous life? I opened my eyes suddenly, and after seeing the bright fluorescent lamp above my head, I gasped for breath. The doctor handed me a child in great surprise and said, "Congratulations. The operation was successful. He is a very healthy son." I took over my son. He was already asleep, but he could tell from his eyebrows that 5 points were like Victor and 3 points were like me. And the hateful voice suddenly disappeared. As expected, as long as I gave birth to my son safely, there would be no strange feelings. The daughter stood outside the ward with her eyes wide open. She looked very haggard and probably hadn't closed her eyes for several days. I looked at the nurse and asked, "Nurse, how many days have I been in a coma?" 2 days. I looked at the blue and black in my daughter's eyes, and it seemed that she had been worried for 2 days. In the end, I still couldn't put my heart to her. I waved to her and said, "Clara, come here." Clara pursed her lips and said with difficulty, "Mom, I have no face to see you." I hugged my son and sighed. "You are my daughter after all, and if you do something wrong, it is not only your responsibility, but also my responsibility as a mother. But the flesh and blood between us is inseparable in this life. Just like this younger brother, he is your younger brother, you are his sister, and the blood and family affection between you cannot be severed. Don't you want to see your own brother? You can get closer and see if you can still hear that so-called heart." Hearing my words, my daughter gritted her teeth and came over. It was at this time that the son suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at his daughter and smiled. The daughter also smiled. "Mom, he is so cute." I touched my daughter's head and said, "Mom never thought that she would sacrifice your interests for this child, and Mom is not old enough to rely on you, a person who has just graduated from college, to support the family." The daughter shed tears of guilt again. "Mom, I'm sorry, I was wrong." After reconciling with his daughter, Victor actually brought Vera to the hospital. "Serena. What the hell is going on? Why did Vera become what she is now?" I looked at Vera, who was sitting in a wheelchair, and smiled. "Victor, she's turned into a fool?" "You ask me, how do I know? You should go to a psychiatric hospital." But Vera said, "It's all your hands and feet." And the doctor checked and said Vera was not sick. What do I do? I sneered, "You believe everything she says. She asked you to eat, do you eat it? Victor, do you have your own judgment?" Victor said impatiently, "What are you still hiding now?" I pointed to the child next to me and said, "Your son is born, don't you want to see it?" Victor heard my words and looked curiously at the child in the stroller. He was stunned at a glance. This child's eyebrows are. He looked at Vera's crazy eyebrows in shock again. Vera's eyebrows originally had a red mole. But it suddenly disappeared 2 days ago, you kid. Seeing that he had discovered the key to the problem, I no longer hid it. The reason why Vera became what she is now is because her soul is missing 1 soul. The soul of a normal person is 3 souls and 7 souls. And the soul she lost was in my son's body. She did everything possible to prevent me from giving birth to this child, because once I successfully gave birth to a child, her soul would be completely absorbed by my son, and she would completely become a fool if she lost her soul and soul. What? Are you making up a story? Victor clearly didn't believe it. Do you think it's mysterious? I smiled. When you heard the voice of the second child, why didn't you think it was mysterious? Vera put her soul into my second child in order to deliberately create a voice and sow discord between our husband and wife. What kind of second child's heart? Those words are all said by her. Seeing his incredible expression, I grabbed Vera's arm and exposed the burn on it. This burn was clearly designed by her to find a doctor to replace me. You can find a random hospital for examination, and you can find out that this is the latest one. That's the whole truth. Victor took a step back in disbelief. In fact, as long as he carefully stroked all these things, he could find out the suspicious points. What if I really took Vera's credit for saving people? Why would I still introduce him to my best friend? I'm a person who doesn't drink alcohol. Even if I cheat, how can I go to find a man in a bar? He clearly knew that everything was full of irreconcilable doubts, but he still believed the baseless second child's heart. That's why I completely gave up on him. Victor, this is the truth. Now take your savior with you. Victor raised his head and repented with tears in his eyes. Wife. It was me wrong before, can we remarry? I slapped him directly. Victor, this slap is back for the last time you pushed me. Seeing that his left cheek was red, I gave him another slap on the right cheek. This slap is for my child. You don't deserve to be his father. When the third slap fell, I hit it even harder. This last slap was for me. Since you are divorced, don't expect me to turn back. I will fight you again in the divorce lawsuit. Don't think about less than a penny in child support. 3 months later, I took my lawyer and killed Quartet in court. In the end, I took my son and daughter and got everything I deserved. On the other hand, because of Victor's relationship with Vera, he can no longer ask Vera, who has become a fool, in this life. Vera was completely integrated into his life, disrupting his family and his work. Finally, one day, Victor couldn't stand it anymore and completely ended Vera's life with a fruit knife. And the fruit knife was the one my daughter stabbed me with. When I saw the news that Victor was sentenced to death, my daughter cried and threw herself into my arms. Mom, I finally helped you and your brother avenge you.